The relationship between faith and understanding. Look at Matthew 16, verses 1 through 4. The relationship between faith and understanding. It says, "Then the Pharisees and Sadducees came and testing him, asked that he would show them a sign from heaven. He answered and said to them, when it's evening, you say it'll be fair weather, for the sky is red, and in the morning it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and threatening. Hypocrites, you know how to discern the face of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times. A wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign shall be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. And he left them and departed." So the Pharisees, the Sadducees, they come to Jesus. Show us a sign that you're from God. Now, it's from the same bunch that have followed Jesus around and seen him do miracle after miracle after miracle, even raising the dead. And if they know their Old Testament, they see these are messianic proofs of what Jesus Christ did that shows that he's the Messiah. They had all kinds of signs, all kinds of evidence. What was the issue? They didn't want to believe. That was the issue. Show us a sign. He said, no sign's going to be given to you but the sign of the prophet Jonah. And he basically just walks away and doesn't even really explain it. Why? Why didn't they get it? Why did Jesus just walk away? I'll tell you why he just walked away. Because they didn't want the truth. God is not going to make you believe when you don't want to believe. People that do not want to obey God have an attitude that creeps out that says, make me. Fine, if you're right, make me. I'm not doing it. It's an attitude, and God's not going to make you. He's going to let you perpetuate your mistakes because he's not going to override your will. He's not going to do it because he created you in his image. So what's that mean? That means that God's not going to give the truth to someone that doesn't respect the truth. I'm confused about this. I just don't get it. I'm confused about it. I don't understand it. It's because God's not going to tell you. Because he's not going to explain to you what your heart rejects. Because all that's going to do is just condemn you even more to hell than you already are. Phrase I say often, if you won't be convicted of truth in your heart, you will never be convinced of truth in your head. People that don't know the truth can be very, 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 very smart, intelligent people. But as soon as you get near their hot button issue that they won't surrender to Christ, they become very, 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 very ignorant. Why? Attitude. They're rebellious. They don't want to know the truth because they don't want to be convicted because they don't want to change. And so you can't give truth to someone like that because God doesn't just want you to have an intellectual understanding of him. He wants to have your heart. And so this is where a lot of smart people miss it, is they won't let God convict them. And if they let God convict them, they would understand in their head, that's why God's word says that. It sounds harsh, but now I get it because I'm humble and I yielded my heart for correction, and now that I can see it right. Now my perspective is clear. I got the beam out of my eye. I can see it now because I yielded my heart for correction. And so now it makes sense. But they don't ever understand it up here if they don't do that step. Because God doesn't want your head, because that's useless without your heart. Now, on the flip side of it, don't think because you just love God so much that you won't be deceived. There's a lot of people that say that think and teach. People get up in the pulpit and think that they cannot be deceived because they pray in tongues. No, ding-a-ling. Most of the heresies in the earth are being propagated by tongue-talking people. So that blows that theory out of the water. Because Your heart's got to be right, but you still have to use your head. It's got to be both. Just because you have a wonderful heart doesn't mean that you're not going to be deceived. All kinds of wonderfully hearted people. I mean, look at what happens to mercy gifts all the time. They're just sweet people get taken advantage of all the time. You got to have both. You got to give God both. Your faith and understanding work together, not against each other. Again, mysticism. We get real mystical about faith, but faith and understanding work together. Faith is based on knowledge. Faith based on ignorance is not faith. You know what the biblical word for faith not based on knowledge is? It's called presumption. It's when you believe something ignorantly. Why? A lot of times it's because you want to believe that, and so you want to stay in ignorance because you don't want anybody to mess with your pet belief. Well, I just believe this, and I'm standing in faith. No, you're not. You're in denial. It's presumption. Presumption isn't going to bring the blessings of God. You're not in faith because you're hiding in a corner. No. I'm in faith, I'm in faith, I'm in faith, I'm in faith. You're in presumption. Faith and understanding work together. Great example of that is Job, the story of Job. Job had tremendous faith, but he had problems with his understanding. When he got things corrected in the end and he got understanding, I imagine his faith grew tremendously. So your faith and understanding work together, not against one another. Don't be afraid a little research will upset your faith. You know, sometimes people get sick and they'll say, well, I don't want the doctor's diagnosis. And I understand that. But sometimes you need to understand that knowledge is not going to kill you. It might give you something to direct your faith against. But the faith that overcomes the world isn't faith that says, don't tell me anything I don't want to hear. Listen, what truth do you believe? You stand on God's word. That's a higher authority than the doctor anyway. But sometimes information will help you. Let's have the right information so that you can take the right steps to deal with it. So understanding is not the enemy of faith. We get that goofy. There might be times when God speaks that, he speaks very clearly, and you have that affirmation in your heart. You know exactly what you need to do. You may not always need to go to the doctor, of course, but there's times where you need to listen to some information. You need to learn something because your faith and understanding aren't enemies. It's actually your knowledge of God that sustains you when you hear something contrary to Him. It's the nature of God that gives you trust that when you hear something that's contrary, it's like, well, my faith's bigger than that because my God's bigger than that. Some people think fighting the good fight of faith means running from your fears. Some people never understand and remain in confusion because they simply do not want to believe the truth.